Hello, everybody. Welcome to Victory Never Sleeps. My guest today is going to be Witan Brandy Callahan, a good friend of mine and probably the hardest working woman in the AFA for sure. Appreciate you guys being here with us tonight. We're kind of experimenting on some stuff. It's the first time we're doing this with a guest. It's also the first time we are trying out broadcasting through Entropy as well. Entropy is kind of a neat system. They really champion free speech, and they do super chats. So if any of you guys at any point in the broadcast want to give a donation or throw a few bucks out there for a question, you don't have to pay me to ask a question. I would love to answer any of your guys' questions. But if you do, we'll prioritize those. And it's always appreciated. It's always going to a good cause. Hope everybody is seeing me out there. Looking at the chat, we're want to rely on some of my AFA folks to post the Entropy link up there. I think I can probably do that myself too. And cool. Awesome. King of Cheese hears us. So Brandy, thank you so much for joining me today. I appreciate it. I know it's, time zones are different and you're coming in after work. So thank you for being here. You guys have an event coming up this weekend, correct?
We do. We have our major work day for Baldurs Half coming up this weekend, which is going to be starting on Friday and going through Saturday and Sunday for those who can still attend. And this is going to be one of our major pushes for the year. We tend to do a couple a year. We're really excited about this stage where we're at with Baldurs Half. We have moved past the functionality phase of making it a working Hof, and we are now working on the beautification phase, which is really exciting to see the progress from then till now. So we have people coming from all over Baldurs Half District. We have people coming from Wisconsin, North Dakota, Iowa, and of course, Minnesota. So it's going to be a great, great time. Meals are provided, and we'll be working all day. We also are very, very lucky to have Goldie Robstam from Thorshoff District joining us this weekend, coming to the Hof for the first time. So we're very excited about that and honored to have him.
Excellent. Kind of a topic that comes up often on my lives is people wanting to know the score with Murdoch. A lot of people who are tuning in have seen, the hit piece that the Guardian did on us and, various negative news commentaries. And I've reassured them that those are works of fiction. But if you could kind of give us a breakdown of how it's been with the community there, what's the community like, let our listeners know, what the home community of Baldurs Half, Murdoch, Minnesota is like.
Sure. So Baldurs Half had a lot of attention, positive and negative attention, when we first acquired the building. And it seems like things just started snowballing from the second it was announced that we had the building. There was a lot of initial apprehension from the community initially. From the very first days that we started working, we had people from the community showing up, asking who we were, what we were about, finding out that we were just normal people working on the church. The church has been a very, very important part of that community for a very long time, and it had really fallen down into disrepair. It had been sold to a private person who had been remodeling it into a home, and very quickly, I think, realized what it was going to take to do that and abandon the project. So the building was literally uninhabitable when we got there. And the community themselves, we have members stop over every food pantry. We have people show up. Every time we're there, somebody from the community stops in. We have regulars that stop in every time we're there. They're very friendly. They let us know that, they're not going to judge us for our religion. They're not going to judge us for our beliefs. They're going to judge us on our deeds. And we've had people walk in and thank us for making that building beautiful and usable again. One of my favorite visitors that I've stopped by at Baldurs Half was actually a couple that got married in that building, would be 51 years ago. This was shortly after the dedication. And they actually brought their wedding album. They no longer live in the area. They drove several hours from out of state just to see the building because it was their anniversary. And they showed us pictures of their wedding pictures from 50 years ago and what the building looked like then and stood in the same place. And they were very amazed that we had still kept it a place of worship. It didn't bother them that it was no longer a Lutheran church. They were just very happy that the building was still standing and that it was well cared for.
Well, that's awesome. I've been really lucky. I've gotten to, I got to think now how many times I've been there. I've gotten to see Baldurs Half about 4 or 5 times now, and the work you guys have done on that place is amazing. I got to see it when we first got it, and it was a mess. And you guys have really put in a lot of love making that place beautiful. Yeah. Seems like we've got people out there every weekend working on it and making it something nice. And it's nice to go there and have the neighbors pass by and wave, and kids and their family riding their bike by and saying hi and wishing us well. That's really cool to get to experience there.
It is.
So Melinda asks if we could consider a join up period before starting, and like an undefined 5 or 10 minute period at the beginning with a song or two. I don't know about a 5 or 10 minute spot. I'm not sure how that sets up. I know you can go when it's already scheduled and get in early if you'd like. But I do think a buffer at the beginning of like some intro music or something would be kind of cool. And I want to talk to my people after the broadcast and in between now and next week and see if we can figure something out. And thank you for that. So with that coming up, I guess also it'd be a good time for you to plug the major Baldurs Half event of the year, the somewhat oddly named Fall Fest for our August event at Baldurs Half. Could you tell everybody a little bit about that and maybe a little bit of the history of that event?
Yes. So Fall Fest, I believe this is year 6 or 7, I believe. For Fall Fest. And originally it was usually in September, but we did actually take into consideration this year the price of travel over Labor Day weekend, the price of gas. We did this with the folk in mind, making it so that there would be more availability, make it easier for them to come, make it more affordable for them to come this year. So that event is going to be, if I can pull up the exact date so I don't get mixed up, it is going to be Friday, August 19th through Sunday, August 21st. So even though it is named Fall Fest for tradition, it will be held in August this year. Tickets are required and available through runestone.org, and it can be found in the shop. And we do have very reasonable prices. If anybody has any questions about Fall Fest, about the itinerary, travel arrangements, where you can stay, we do ask that you contact myself at bcallahan@runestone.org or one of our amazing folk builders, Jason Gallagher, at jgallagher@runestone.org.
So I got to take just a second to thank our folk builder, Nick Rice, for moderating stuff here and kind of helping produce. He's throwing up useful links over in the chat, which is much, much appreciated. Yeah, no, we appreciate him. Fall Fest is awesome. That's one of, after becoming Alsherjargothi in 2016, that was the first big event that I went to as the leader of the Asatru Folk Assembly. And it was the very first Fall Fest. And it was a really special thing. That area in the Dakotas and in Minnesota there had been a wasteland as far as Asatru is concerned for a very long time. And then in, I don't know, I want to say 2013, 2014, really started seeing a lot of activity there. We started getting a really good community, some great people that put a whole lot of love and a whole lot of themselves in building the AFA up there. And so much so that within just a couple of short years, they had their first national event. So Fall Fest's always got kind of a special place in my heart. Our folk builder, Jason Gallagher, that Brandy mentioned a few minutes ago, he's been there since the beginning, making this happen and kind of being the host of this event. And yeah, it's a really good time. If anyone can make it, I would recommend that you do. Even if you can't make it for Fall Fest, if you get a chance, you should, and you're anywhere close, you should check out Baldurs Half in Minnesota. It's beautiful. It's a great place. A lot of what we do and still on this broadcast is going to be question and answer stuff. We got Brandy here. If anybody's got any specific Brandy questions, I can get her to give you some answers. If you got any questions for me, as always, I'm happy to answer anything. And folks just joining us, coming in a little bit late, this is also on a platform called Entropy. And over on Entropy, we can take donations and a super chat feature that will, help throw a little bit of money the AFA's way, and we'll take that. I'm looking over here. It looks like King of Cheese has got a question for us. Yeah, he says he's hoping to contact you, Brandy, at some point, and about a project. So hopefully he can reach out to you. He's one of our members up there named Tony, and goes by King of Cheese, and I think that's probably the most clever handle that we got on here. So there's that.
One more plug about Fall Fest, as well as any of the other national events at any of the Hofs that you go through during the year. These are our major fundraising events for the Hofs. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity for, games and things like that. Excellent discussions, wonderful food, powerful bloats. There's also going to be an auction on there. You mentioned the auction, and that's really great. So this is our major fundraising event of the year. Baldurs Half still does need a lot of beautification, and anybody who would like to donate that can definitely do so at Fall Fest. If you're not able to make Fall Fest, but you do want to add to the beauty of your Hof, you can always visit runestone.org in the donate section, and there is the ability to donate to all 4 of the Hofs to make them beautiful, our own, and buildings worthy of the gods that they're dedicated to.
One of the things that you guys may not know, each of our Hofs have, one event a year that's kind of their big signature event. And as Brandy mentioned, it's fundraising opportunity for that particular Hof, and it's kind of their showcase. We get people from around the country and certainly all over the different districts coming to those and supporting those, and those are always a big deal. Matter of fact, on the side, and we're having discussions with our Njordshof leadership on what their big event's going to look like. Those of you who aren't aware, Njordshof is fixing to have their dedication. That is coming up exactly 1 month from today. I will be going down for that. It's in White Springs, Florida, and we couldn't be more excited about that. You guys have heard me on here for months telling you in anticipation of this, and had hurdles along the way, and it's really nice to finally have that 4th Hof dedicated to Njordur. So, yep, we're going to go down there and do that here in 1 month. If you guys can make it out, fantastic, and I hope to see you guys there. Melissa asks, how do people get their name on the beautiful Baldurs Half Shield of Names? Brandy, can you break that down for us?
I can. So for those who have not seen it yet, the beautiful Baldurs Half shield is 1 brandy tall almost. It's a very large, beautiful shield with our crest on it. And that is our donator plaque. And the way to get your name on that plaque is to donate $500 to Baldurs Half. And that can be done all at one time or over the course of 5 months. But when you hit that $500 mark, we will go ahead and put a beautiful silver colored engraved plaque up on that big, beautiful shield.
Melinda, has there been any consideration of having online auctions as well at some point? As a matter of fact, Brandy brought that up earlier this morning in one of our leadership groups, discussing that as a good way for fundraising. So yes, we absolutely are thinking about doing those down the road here. And I know we're going to need people who want to donate and also who want to bid on some of those items. But that's a real good question. So Sheila chimed in that the stream looks great and this is one more big step for the AFA, and I thank you for that. I really hope that it is. Hope y'all are enjoying this. I hope this is a good format, an easy, fun format for everybody to participate in, and it's a good chance to just talk with my folk. I love you guys, and I want to be able to talk to you, and it's great to spotlight some of our leaders that are so dedicated to making this work. So it's really a privilege to have Brandy on here with us. Anybody got any questions? Any Asatru questions for me? Any Asatru questions for Brandy? Any questions in general? If you do, please go ahead and throw them up. One of the coolest things about this new format and having Nick help me is it cuts way down on my having to sit there and have the dead air of, hold on, guys, let me read the chat. I know that was getting tedious. I appreciate you guys sticking with me on my monthlies with that. Brandy, we talked earlier about some topics that you wanted to hit on. Could you tell us a little bit about women in the AFA and how that works? I know a lot of ladies are curious about how women in our church function, and you are the best person to talk on that.
Thank you. Well, one thing that is a very big misconception about the Asatru Folk Assembly and about Asatru is that women don't have a place here. One of the things that our naysayers will say is that there's no room for women here. There's plenty of room for women here, and we definitely take up our own space. We do believe in the Asatru Folk Assembly that there are very distinct roles between the masculine and the feminine, our men and our women. And those roles are very distinct, and they're both very beautiful, and they're separate and both very, very, very important. A woman's role in the AFA as leadership, or even just as a wife or a mother or a friend within the AFA, an AFA sister, is to build frith with the other folk in the AFA. That is a duty that is almost like it was made for a woman's role. Now, frith is something, if you look up the books and you look up all the educational material about frith, it's going to tell you that frith is peace. Frith is so much more than peace. Frith is a reciprocal relationship of give and take. It's built on respect. It's built on loyalty. It's built on love for one another, love for each other's families. Women have an ability, a very unique ability, to soften when things are hard, to make it a little bit easier, to maybe be a little bit gentler in resolving conflicts. Sometimes we can do that as women to women. Sometimes we can do that with our children. We have a very beautiful ability to build relationships and tie ourselves to each other as sisters, tie ourselves to families, build bonds with our children, build bonds with entire districts. We have a lot of women in the AFA, and a lot of in Baldurs Half as well. They send out cards to people in the AFA. They don't have to. What they want to do is let you know that we're thinking about you, that we appreciate you being here, that you're important. Maybe just to tell you happy birthday or to thank you for showing up to an event. That is frith building. That is letting you know how important you are to them personally, to the district, and to the AFA as a whole. So that is something that women are, like I said, are very, very good at and just built for. We are emotional creatures. We thrive in emotional settings to build those relationships. So that's one very important role of the women. Another really distinct role of our women is as Githias of the Asatru Folk Assembly. Now, everyone's always very familiar with our gods, Odin, Thor, Baldur. The women have a very unique relationship with our goddesses, where you can see a Gothi having a strong, powerful, emotional blow to Odin. You can get that same sort of emotion and power and beauty when a Githia will do a blow to Frigga or to Freya. Just like there needs to be a beauty and a balance between the gods and goddesses, there's a beauty and a balance between the men and the women of the AFA. So to say that we don't have a place or we don't have importance is really silly and proves that the people who say it have never been to an event. They've never been to a Hof. They've never sat down and had a conversation with a woman in the AFA.
You hit the nail on the head right there. The people that criticize the, archaic gender roles of the AFA, they're just regurgitating that somebody on the left or somebody in the media told them instead of actually experiencing it. Our women are such a very important part of what we do. And, you mentioned the power that is inherent when we have our Githya performing bloats to our goddesses. But something that I think is a misconception, and sometimes it's even a misconception within the AFA. I don't think that you need to only have a Gothi is the only one that can do a bloat to a god, and a Githya is the only one that can do a bloat to a goddess. I think that what is really special is that the way that a Gothi bloats to a god and the way that a Githya bloats to a god is different. And the energy is so different. The way that a Gothi comes before one of our goddesses and the way that a Githya does is also very different. And the tone of that is really powerful in and of itself. But no, I think that's definitely, that's the point. People who say that have never gotten a chance to experience it. And it's really unfortunate, because I think that if some of those people got out from the basement and out in the world practicing Asatru, they'd get over some of their misconceptions and some of their blind hate they have for us. See over on the side, Melinda wishes that these were weekly. Well, that's the plan. So I'm hoping to do these every Wednesday. We'll wait and see your guys' reaction to this. And if you shout it down too bad, we may mix it up. But if you guys are enjoying it, I like this format. I like talking to you guys as much as I can, and I kind of look for every excuse to do it. So Wednesdays at 6 Pacific is the plan to do these. And also, people were asking for the AFA to do things in a podcast format. So what I want to do is take these and, clean them up on the back end and release them as podcasts. And that's going to be the plan here in a little bit. Michael Dostoevsky asks, he's heard there's websites for each of our Hofs. There is. I see the Baldurs Half site up. If any of our amazing AFA folks over on the side could post links to each of our 4 Hof pages now, that would be fantastic. Then you guys could check those out. Our folk builder, Jessica Lambert, has done an amazing job making beautiful websites for each of our Hofs. If you go check them out, there's a lot of neat things on them, but probably the most useful and very telling about the AFA and how we're doing is there's a calendar section. I think it's called events on each of those sites, and it interfaces really beautifully with smartphones, but it shows you that every weekend we've got multiple things going on in all of our districts. There's so much activity right now because our folk builders are making things happen. Our members are coming out. They're getting out in the world. They're doing Asatru, and it's a really beautiful thing and a special time to be part of the AFA. There we go. Thanks, guys. I see some of those other links coming up in the chat over there. Talking about women in Asatru. One of the most powerful bloats I was ever a part of was, I think it was 2016 at Fall Fest. A Githya of ours at the time, Patricia Hall, did a Desir bloat. And a Desir bloat is where we do a bloat honoring our female ancestors. We believe that our female ancestors, I say we believe, we know that our female ancestors look on after death over the members of their family. And the love and the devotion that women give their families doesn't end when their time in Midgard ends. They look on from beyond the veil, and that time right in the fall there is a really special time where that veil's thin. Anyways, Pat did this bloat, and I mean, I would say 75% of us there, myself included, were just in tears. It's strange, the Pavlovian response I have to it, because I'm tearing up a little bit right now thinking about it. We called upon our DCer, and I closed my eyes, and I swear to you, I literally gave my grandma a hug in that circle, and she'd passed for 15 years at that point. So what women can do ritually is very, very powerful, and their spot in the AFA has always been really important to us.
And those sort of bloats really show the difference between theoretical Asatru and real Asatru. You know, there's only so much you can get out of a book when you're actually standing in a circle, bloating to your gods and sharing that with your folk. A book cannot replace that.
No, you actually made a really cool meme after Midsummer about how, some of the most special things in Asatru don't happen in books. They happen by getting out there, getting in the arena, and participating and building that gift cycle with the gods. And that brings us to something I want to talk to you about. But first, I want to get to a question that Ruben had. I thank you for tuning in all the way from Argentina. That's awesome to have you here. I hope you can make it up to our Hofs sometime soon. We would love to have you see us and visit us in the United States. You mentioned that even in the middle of this post-COVID weakened economy, the AFA has kept donating to the community through the Hofs. And you ask if this changed in any way the perception that the neighbors had about our organization. And I want to let Brandy go on this because she's probably got a lot to give you very specifically and hands-on there. But those of you that may not be aware, at each of our Hofs, and we'll start it up at Njord's Hof as soon as they're dedicated. I've already asked those folks to get prepared and ready. But we do a monthly food giveaway, what's called a food pantry, to where locals in the community that are struggling with having enough to eat for them and their families can come out, and we can load them up with what we've got and help them out a little bit. And it's been a really special thing. It's something that we started at Odin's Hof 2017, 2018, somewhere in there. And it's been a really nice thing to be a part of. And that's helped us in Brownsville at Odin's Hof. It's helped us in Linden at Thor's Hof. It's helped us in Murdoch, and Brandy's going to tell you a little bit more about that. But yeah, it's been a really special thing. And, we're honestly in a weakened economy, folks need that much more than when things are strong. So we're always going to keep those up and keep trying to be good neighbors in the communities we're in. Brandy, if you could tell us a little bit about how our food distributions have gone in Murdoch.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we get into the food distribution in Minnesota specifically, we do have to give a shout out to Sheila McNallen, who has really set the bar and the standard of excellence when it comes to the food pantry. I mean, she's so dedicated. And she has been a huge help to all of us over here in the Baldurs Half district, really figuring out logistics and what to do and how to run and things like that. So we do got to say thank you, Sheila McNallen, for all the help that you've given us on the back end, helping us through that. At Baldurs Half, we started out a little bit small because we had to build a relationship with the people who are giving us the donations. Folk builders Ashley McStalker and Nathan Erlinson had a really good connection with a local food bank who was giving us a lot of dried goods to get us started and helping us out with hygiene items. Gothi Jason Plord, who's now in the Njord's Hof district, set up the relationship with one of the other businesses in Wilmer. And they started donating to us as well. And at Folk Builder McStalker has really just built that relationship so strong to the point where we almost have too much food sometimes. We end up giving it away all the time, but we actually have to buy another freezer for Baldurs Half because our frozen goods and our prime meats, we're getting so many of them that we're having trouble storing it all almost. So we actually need to get another freezer to make sure we have enough capacity. And we started out feeding 2 or 3 families, waving at people. Folk builder Jason Gallagher would walk the street and wave at people and they would honk at him. It was a beautiful thing to see. But we started out with just a few families. And now we're feeding anywhere between 15 and 23 families a weekend. The last food pantry, we gave out, I think, an entire bag of beverages to the brim of just different beverages. We gave out bags so full of dried goods that they were overflowing, and we gave out 2 bags of prime cut meats and frozen items and frozen bread. So we have really grown to be able to accommodate a lot of these families in very lean times. It seems like the smaller communities in our area have really been hit the hardest over the past year or so. So it's really good to be able to build that relationship and help the people who need it the most. We've had people we've had people give us cards thanking us. The city of Murdoch does have us in their newsletter, letting people know that we're going to have a food pantry on the 3rd weekend of the month. So the city is helping us get people. We actually have referrals from other local churches that send people to us. They talk about it in their Sunday masses. They talk about sending, if you need food, go to Baldurs Half, they'll help you. So we really do have a support from the community, and we do have a support from the public. We've had people stop by and not take food, but give us a monetary donation to help buy more food. And these are local people. So we've had tremendous support and a really, really just a great experience this whole way around with this food pantry.
Yeah, didn't I see you guys giving away crab legs at one point?
We did. There was a month we gave away lobster tails, crab legs, and tomahawk steaks. So it was amazing. And we have had people get these bags of food and cry. I mean, there was a few times that people couldn't make it because of the weather. Sometimes they can't make it. If we get a snowstorm or something like that, people can't make it. We hold that food pantry on the 3rd Saturday of the month in -40 below in January and 100 degrees in August. We will be there. We will make it to make sure you have food. And sometimes people had to miss because they couldn't make it. And to see the expressions of gratitude and having them falling down their face, thanking them, because we're filling their freezer with food and they have not been able to leave the house in 2 weeks because of the snow. It's a really good feeling, and I'm really glad we can help those people.
Well, we got a couple of questions for you, Brandy, but that's a point that I really want to reiterate. It's really helpful to these families. It's really helpful to these communities, but it's really, really helpful to us as people to be able to do something in a very tangible way that helps folks and that makes people's day or week or month a little bit better and a little bit easier. I know a lot of our listeners do this. I think we all do. It's easy to get bogged down in all the stuff about the world that you don't know how to change, but that frustrates you, all the things that aren't right that should be. To be able to take a moment and do something good and make a positive difference in the world is a really special thing. And it's a blessing that we've all been able to experience when we've participated in these different food pantries at our Hofs. So Stevie asks, Brandy, how did you become a part of the AFA, and how did you come into this religion?
Coming into the religion was something that has been coming since my teenage years. I was never someone that could, I guess, accept a Christian upbringing. I fortunately had a grandparent who was very, very, very supportive of me exploring other options. I first actually started out exploring the Slavic deities and, following my culture in that regards, but I ultimately found my way home with the Aesir. My best friend actually got me started in the AFA. She said, hey, listen, we've got this group. I want to go meet up with them. Let's go talk to them. And we did. We had coffee with the local folk builder and started, talking about the lore, talking about, values, talking about what the AFA stood for. And it was really great to have a community of like-minded people. I did attend one of their events, and I literally signed up the next day. this is where I want my children to be. This is who I want my kids to be around. This is something I can get behind. This place feels like home. I had been part of groups in the past from 1999 until 2018. I have never experienced a group of people that I felt as safe with, that I felt secure in my own beliefs, that I could share with them, that I felt had a real understanding of what Asatru was, and also saw Asatru as a religion that worshiped their gods. That was a big deal for me, because one thing that really bothered me was, people telling me I refused to bow down to my gods. Well, I worship my gods, and I really wanted to find a group that was like that as well. I wanted to worship the Aesir, and I found a way to do that here in the AFA.
Bruce asks, so Bruce says he only had a chance to practice Asatru while in prison, and he knows some things are different in the free world, and wanted to buy some books and learn everything that he can. He says he's ordered some books from runestone.org. Anybody out there who wants to order any books or any of our merchandise, there's a store at runestone.org. And he wanted to know if I could recommend any others that would be helpful. And Brandy, I want you to chime in on this too, on some good books for him. First, Bruce, I'm glad that you're out, and that's great that you want to learn as much about Asatru as you can. I'm trying to think of the best books that we don't have on the website. The Culture of the Teutons, people are probably going to get tired of hearing me say it, but it's always one of my go-tos. It's, as far as for the worldview and practice of our ancestors, it's probably the best book I've come across. It's The Culture of the Teutons by Wilhelm Groenbeck. And it's a profound book. It's really wonderful, and I got a lot out of it. That's always my top recommendation. I don't know how much you know about runes. I know a lot of guys inside do a lot of studying about that, so I don't know if that's something you know about. If you're brand new to it, one of the other books I always recommend is The Runes Workbook by Leon Wild. It's a really good intro book. It's good for children. It's good for people who are brand new. I really like that book. If you're a little bit further along, I think I'd recommend just about any of Edred Thorson's books on runes. But Alu, his book, Alu, A-L-U, is probably my favorite book that he has on runes. But those are what I have off the top of my head. Brandy, do you have any recommendations?
I do, especially for our women folk are in here, and it's good for the men as well. Lady with a Mead Cup, read alongside of Beowulf, is a great combination. I also like The Road to Hell. I like that book. And Culture of the Teutons is a must-read on that one. And also Stephen McNallen's book on Asatru is always a definite required reading if you really want to know how Asatru works, especially within the AFA. I think that's what I've got off the top of my head without looking at my bookcase across the room.
Okay, so Michael Dostoevsky is asking again. He says he understands there's an amount to donate to get on the shield, $500 or better. But is there a time frame? No, there's not. This is cumulative. If you start running it into the decades, it's going to be really hard for us to track. But there's no time frame. We really appreciate anything you all can give. That's how stuff happens, and it's much appreciated. And as soon as you reach that 500 mark, we would love to have your name up there. So yeah, there's no time frame. Hugh Manipulation asks, who specifically practiced Midsummer as inspiration? I'm not sure I understand the question. Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what you asked there. If you could ask again, I'll give you a better answer. I apologize. Lars from Denmark. Thank you for making it on, Lars. It's great to have somebody from Denmark on here. It was a really special thing. I got to travel to Denmark in 2014, I believe, and meet some of our folks over there. And it's really nice to have you on the program. I wanted to know if I could explain the meanings behind the flags. So these two behind me, the blue with the tri-horn on it is actually, that's the AFA flag, but it's based on a rune stone, the Snovellev stone that's in the National Museum there in Copenhagen. And it's basically the three horns of Odin's inspiration. And it's been the official AFA symbol, I think, since 2010, I want to say, but I could be wrong. I got to look back in our history on that. But yeah, that's what that one is. And then the red one behind me, that's the official flag for Odenshof. And yes, you noticed it has Sleipnir on it and as the mascot. And then the motto says, do right and fear no one. And that's kind of the motto of Odenshof. And we've got a flag similar to this for our other three Hofs as well. Leonard asks, how can I be a friend to the AFA without joining the church, so to speak, specifically on a social level, perhaps for folks who are not ready to take the spiritual plunge, but support? So there's lots of ways, and I'm glad you asked that. Word of mouth, telling people about the AFA, letting them know that we're out here, letting them know what some of our core beliefs are, sharing the things that we do, sharing our story to folks. Financial contributions are always helpful, and not just with yourself, but with those you talked about in a social context. I mean, even stuff like this, if they want to come in here and ask questions or throw some donations on Entropy, that'd be awesome. So there's a lot of ways that you can help, and I think just educating folks about who we are. Every time we have people with real interaction that go out in the world and talk about us, it's always a great thing for us. But unfortunately, sometimes if people just Google us, we can't really control those algorithms. And that's not always putting our best foot forward. That's a lot of people with a lot of untruths, but it's hard to dispute those if we're not there. So yeah, just advocating for us and telling the story of who we are. And it's much appreciated that you want to do that. Sheila McNallen has some suggestions on some books. The Germanization of Early Medieval Christianity is a hard one to get a hold of, but it's a really good book, and it explains a lot about the interplay between Christianity and Asatru, especially in the very, very early stages of European Christian development. And it talks about how a great many Christian practices are adopted from our practices. And so it explains a lot, and it does a lot to clarify stuff. I think that's a really good recommendation. Okay, there we go. Thank you for asking again. Hugh Manipulation asks, he sees the Midsummer Celebration posts and was wondering what the root of the practices are. As far back as I'm aware of, our people practiced celebrating the return of the sun at midsummer, at or very close to the summer solstice. That practice has been with us as a race since at least Neolithic times, and it was always a time of celebrating the vibrancy and the energy of summer and the return of that sun and the return of warmth. That sun once again being at its height at midsummer, and that promise of that height of the sun. So that's kind of the inspiration behind it and why we do it. Very often, people will dedicate that bloat to Suna. Very often people in the AFA specifically, we really spend our time dedicating that to Baldur and to his resurrection as the light and the bright and shining one of the Aesir. But yeah, that's kind of the history of Midsummer with the AFA. I think it's probably one of the bigger. Think if people break it down to the really big ones that we do, certainly Yule at the winter solstice and Midsummer at the summer solstice are probably two of the biggest ones and most popular bloats and celebrations that we do. Mm-hmm. And Midsummer is also the biggest event we do in the country. Statistically, it's I mentioned earlier that each of the Hofs has a signature event. That's the one for Odenshof. For a very long time, that was the only national event the AFA did, was Midsummer. And now we host that at Baldurs Half, and it's gotten our highest attendance of anything we've ever done. And it was great once again this year. And yeah, so I hope that answers your question. Yeah, getting back to it, I was gonna start a second ago or a little while back when you finished on something, Brandy, but we talked about getting out and practicing real Asatru in the real world. And you mentioned earlier that real life Asatru versus internet Asatru is something you wanted to speak on. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that.
I do. So a lot of the time, and it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek, funny, not funny joke within Asatru communities that you're constantly being told you're doing it wrong. You're doing this wrong, you're doing that wrong. I can sort this source from this book, from this publication date, from this author. You're doing it wrong. Asatru is not in a book. Worshipping the gods is not in a book. Worshipping the gods is in your blood. It is in your soul. It is your birthright. There is no book that can determine your birthright. The gods are your most ancient ancestors, and you carry that on through your ancestors. You have a direct link. You don't need to read 500 books to have that. That spark is natural. Now, there are a few things that we have historically that we can see that were done. However, for the people who are constantly telling you that you're doing it wrong or telling the AFA that we're doing it wrong, they're putting a lot of faith in a book. We're putting the faith in our folk. We're putting the faith in our leadership. We're putting the faith in our Godard, and we're utmost putting the faith in our gods. That's where we find our justification. You can read 1,000,000 books, you can write 1,000,000 essays, but when's the last time you did a bloat? When's the last time you participated in the gift cycle? When's the last time you shared frith with someone? Those are the things that are important. You can regurgitate all the information you want, but it has no meaning without practice, and it has no meaning without devotion. So that is one thing I really wanted to touch on tonight, is that, this is your birthright. As the folk, this is our birthright. And you don't need a certificate from a book. You don't need anyone else's permission. This is your birthright.
That's really important. I made this, first, it's easy for me to get on a tangent on this and for people to misunderstand. Reading books is really important. Studying things, studying archaeology, studying linguistics, studying the lore is super important. And it can do so much to inform your practice, to help you build a better relationship with the gods, to help you build a better understanding. But if it ends there, you're not connected to our gods in a relationship. You're a weird stalker. Like, I made this analogy before, and it may sound silly, but I think it's absolutely the truth. If my wife had a strange stalker that dug through the trash and, dug up old records on essays my wife wrote in high school, he would know certain things about my wife that I don't know. I will give him that. But he doesn't have a relationship. Meanwhile, we're married and she's the mother of my child, and every day I have a relationship with my wife. The minutia of details that you get when you go through the dumpster doesn't make a relationship. A relationship is made through interaction. Brandy made this point with the gifting cycle. A relationship is made with our gods when you stand before them and you offer them your sincere worship or something from your heart. When they receive it and when they give you their blessings in return. And when you do that, it's a cycle. When you do that cyclically, it doesn't just go in a circle, but it spirals upwards to even better and stronger things. And we see that the longer we're engaged in that gift cycle with our gods. It's something I say to our detractors, but it's also something I say to our members and anybody listening to this. The biggest thing I could recommend you do is go out there and practice Asatru with other Asatruar. Go and open your heart, open your mind to our gods and see, and give it a shot and see what happens. It's the hardest thing to argue with some of these people, because we can argue about different ancient texts, but I can't talk to them in a way that's going to make sense about religious experience if they haven't experienced it. But the people who have experienced it, once you do, you can never go back, and you can never not know and never not have that. But the folks that won't take that first step of participating, they miss out on that, and they'll never know that joy. And that's really unfortunate. So I can't encourage you more to go out and be part of that gifting cycle and be and do Asatru.
For those, for a lot of people that are just starting out and they are just feeling that first spark of pull to the Aesir, the question is always, where do I start? And we can give you a few good books to start with, but one thing I want you to really think about and really start with before you get too deep into quoting any books is I want you to find a nice, quiet place in your home that's going to be undisturbed. Get some candles, some incense. Get a bowl for an offering. Decide who it is that you want to start that gift cycle with, whether it's the Aesir, whether it's a specific god or goddess, whether it's what I would recommend also is your ancestors that have passed on. Leave a gift for them on this space. It doesn't have to be fancy wording. You don't have to have on a special cloak made of crushed velvet or anything like that. Find a quiet place. Talk to your gods. Talk to the heroes. And talk to your ancestors. And leave them a gift. And the more you do this and the more you build that relationship, the more that you're going to see these gifts return to you. And that's how you start the cycle. It's not memorizing a book. It's something from the heart. Start the cycle. Everybody says, where do I start? Start there. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Start with what you got.
We got another question from Ruben. It says, lately, there's been a steady amount of new brothers and sisters joining the AFA. Are you perceiving a rise in the numbers of people that are reaching to, or is it just a seasonal thing? Certainly our year comes in seasonal cycles of people join in or, upped enthusiasm. But no, overall, the AFA is doing amazing right now. I think last month we reached the highest number of members we've ever had. I was trying to crush the numbers, and I think we're up about 15% over the last year. And that's a pretty substantial increase. So no, the AFA is doing amazing, and so many people are coming out of the woodwork and finding us and joining. A big part of that's our Hofs. We get local folks in those areas that didn't know we exist that come out. I think a lot of it is just the steady hard work that our folk builders put into spreading the message and meeting people and talking to people and representing the AFA in a good and honorable way. I think our folk builders do so much. If you look at any of those websites that I talked about and that we linked over in the side, I said, go to that event section, look on the calendar of how many different things are going on, and seeing this level of activity is something the AFA has never seen this much before. It is fantastic. So no, it's not just seasonal. I'm sure that we do get a lot of folks during the summer, but that happens throughout the year for different reasons. Right now is just a really powerful time to be part of the AFA. And it goes back to what I just said with that gifting cycle. The AFA has been engaged actively in the gifting cycle with our gods and in building a relationship with our gods for 28 years now. And that's built on the back of Steve McNallen's relationship with the gods. I have to look, I think about 54 years now that he's been worshiping the gods and has built that relationship. So those relationships really shows the God's blessings. And I believe that with our establishing these Hofs and with our steadily improving what we do and how we do it, that we've really earned the favor of our gods. And we see that in the success we've been having. And that's a powerful testament to me that we're doing something right. Lane asks, okay, will there be crushed velvet cloaks in the store? No, Lane, there will not be crushed velvet cloaks in the store. I don't know if we have velveteers that can make those. I don't think it's the appropriate fashion choice for 2022.
We are also not selling shoulder pelts or low cut bonus leather shirts for the women either. Makeup also not included.
On your way to the Hof, you may be able to find suitable shoulder pelt material depending on what part of the country that you are in. Well, do we have any more questions from you guys today, from me or from our guest Brandy tonight? And I think we hit on it, but is there anything you wanted to add further about the gift cycle? You mentioned that as one of the things you wanted to discuss tonight.
Oh, you touched on it a lot with, mentioning, Stephen McNallen's relationship and how the AFA has really built off of that. And, one thing I really want people to remember as well is when you sit and stumble with your folk, when you sit in, in that circle or at a Hof with your folk, you're sharing in that. Being a member of the AFA is bringing you into that. You are sharing that with us. You are connected with us there. So you're included if you're a member of the AFA.
So we've got a couple last things. Hue manipulation. First, thank you. He says, this is a great spiritual chat. It's very good stuff. This is what we need. And he wants us to give you your own podcast, Brandy. Apparently I'm stinking up the joint. So no, I'm good that Brandy's on, making me look better this time. That's great. No, it's really nice to have Brandy here, and I'm glad you like what we're doing. I'm glad you like this format. He also asks, what are our thoughts on the Marvel movies, and Marvel's Thor has that increased membership? It's a mixed bag. I think that it's brought a amount of attention that hadn't happened before, or in the same circles that it's brought attention to, but I don't think it's had a particularly significant effect that way. I think that it has caused confusion or brought, weirdos over that maybe have no actual spiritual desire to be part of Asatru, but have a passing interest because of it. But I really don't think it's had any particular effect other than, people with obnoxious t-shirts and such. Brandy, what do you think?
Well, I'm not a really big fan. However, what I will say is this. If that is what brought you to Asatru, that's fine. I might look at you a little bit sideways and give you a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and that's okay. I'm going to tease you a little bit, but you know what? If that's what brought you here, at least something brought you here. At least something sparked that. Stephen McNallen was inspired by a book. I know people who've been inspired by hearing about mythology in second grade when their teacher read them from, Norse mythology book. I mean, if that's what brought you here, great. It's probably not what's going to keep you here. What's going to keep you here is real worship of the Aesir, how that's going to touch your soul and the relationships that you're going to build with your brothers and sisters. If it brought you here, that's fine, but it shouldn't be the reason that it keeps you here.
Good deal. Sheila made a point of note that Nick thinks we should reiterate, and I do too. Sheila says, while people of other religions feared COVID and hid away in their homes, we in the AFA gathered at Odenshof every month to celebrate and to honor our gods. So we didn't just do that at Odenshof. Something really interesting to note, and I'm sure many of us have different opinions about COVID-19 and about the various responses to it. And this isn't really about that. We saw America that still has a very substantial faith community of people that would go every week since they were children to their church or, whatever their place of worship might be, and engage in worship services and in religious activity. And then all of a sudden, because of COVID or the response to it, we've had Christians that still haven't gone back to their churches. We've watched for 2 years faithful people not be allowed to interact with their God in that way and together with their folk in that act of worship. I'm very, very proud to say that we didn't miss a beat during any of COVID-19 or the oppressive responses to it. We held events at each of our Hofs every single month during it. We actually acquired Baldurs Half and Thor's Hof during 2020, during the height of that.
Mm-hmm.
During the height of that, we had our record attendance for Midsummer at Odenshof. So we don't let anything prevent us from worshiping our gods and from gathering with our folk. And during that time, we hugged, we shook hands, we shared a horn, we shared a meal. And I think that got a lot of us through a very difficult time in this country. And it's unfortunate that other folks didn't have that opportunity, but I feel very blessed to be part of the AFA and to have my AFA brothers and sisters go strong during that. Melissa asks if the AFA has considered something like a Founders Day celebration. Absolutely we have, Melissa. That's certainly something that I've thought about. I think we're still fleshing some of that out, but I do make a point of having Steve's birthday on our calendar, and I want people to celebrate that when it comes around each year. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that on the back end. You can reach out to me, but that is something we have considered. Brandy, Josh wants you to give another plug for upcoming Fall Fest and its activities for folks, anybody who may have missed it at the top of the broadcast.
Sure. So Fall Fest activities are going to include several speakers, as they always do. Kind of how the rundown of the schedule briefly will look. I won't bore you with the logistical details, but we will be starting every morning with the dedication at the altars of our folk hero Elsie Christensen, our ancestor altar, as well as Baldur's altar. We will start out each day with a dedication for that. There will be breakfast every day, fika every day, lunch and dinner. We are going to have several speakers. We will have a children's bloat and activity as well. We will also be splitting off into men's groups and women's groups so that we can talk about things that are specific to each one of us. There's going to be several bloats throughout the day. The first bloat is going to be a welcoming of the gods, and that's going to be by folk builder Nathan Erlinson. And then Witan Alan Turnage, which I am super excited to see because he hasn't been there in a long time, has told me that he will do Baldur's bloat for us, and I'm mentioning that in public, so now he can't back down. Our Alsherjargothi is actually going to hold our main bloat on Saturday, and I'm very excited for that. And I will be holding our Wayfarers bloat on Sunday. We will also have a high stumble. We will have all kinds of games for kids and adults, tests of skill. We have a special tournament that's planned. That's going to be great. But it's just going to be a great time. There's going to be plenty of time for you to reconnect with people that you haven't seen in a year or 6 months or 2 years. You know, we definitely build that time in the schedule where you can just sit down and talk to your folks. So it's going to be a great weekend. It's going to be August 19th, 21st.
That's awesome. I didn't know Alan was coming. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be great.
I'm doing it on the podcast. Can't back down, Alan.
There we go. There we go. No, it'll be really exciting to see Alan's Baldur bloat. Which throws me for a loop. I thought that's what I was going to do. So I'm doing the other one. I'm going to have to figure that. I am really excited about it. It's going to be great. We're going to have awesome people there. Also, Gothi Trent East from way down in Georgia is going to be a guest there as well. So once again, if you guys can make it to Baldurs Half, please do. You guys are missing out, and I want you all to be there. Yeah, we got a couple of other questions, comments on the side. Michael asks, are the rituals a rite of initiation? That's a hard question depending on how you want to take the question. In the same sense that it's used in a lot of mystery traditions, I think it serves a initiatory purpose, but I don't think we do it in the same way or with some of the same implications. But our rituals are very much a relationship building with our gods. And what happens during those rituals is really special. We had a very, very powerful one at Midsummer. And what I ask everyone to do before they go into the circle, and I've paid way more attention to doing this more now, to open up your heart, open up your mind, and reach out to the gods. And a fundamental change happens in the core of many people during these rituals, to where they reach out, and if they're worthy and if their heart's open, then the gods reach back. And when you see that happen in someone's eyes, when you see that they had that moment, that's absolutely initiatory, and it changes them in a profound alchemical way, that they're not the same person. They're not the same person when they leave that circle. So we got a question on any thoughts on the Northman. I did not see it, so I do not have any thoughts on it. Brandy, do you have any thoughts on it? Did you see it?
Haven't seen it. Got no opinion.
Oh, sorry, Don. I got nothing for you. I've heard a lot of people liked it. I've heard a number of people it wasn't their cup of tea. I've heard kind of mixed reviews. I don't think it is probably as bad as many of us had feared it might be. When it comes out on any of my streaming services, I think that I'll probably give it a watch, and I have something to report back then. And I'll try to remember to do that. Sheila asks, what is a folk builder and how does one go about joining the AFA? These are always good questions for us to reinforce on here. Start with the last one first. How do you join the AFA? You go to our website, www.runestone.org, and there's a join link there. That's the easiest, simplest version. A little bit more expanded than that. Go there and read our core documents, read our declaration of purpose, our statement of ethics. And if that resonates with you, and if you're, a heterosexual white person and you would like to be part of the Asatru Folk Assembly, please join us. I'd also recommend that you reach out either before or after you join. It depends on you. But reach out to your local folk builder. If you already joined, they'll reach out to you. But reach out to your local folk builder and ask them anything you want to know. Go to an event, become involved, see what we do, see what we're all about. And that's what I'd recommend on that. Now, it brings me to what is a folk builder? A folk builder, it's ironic that, irony is the right word, but it's interesting that Sheila asked that question. Sheila is the template of a folk builder. Sheila is what most of us who've gone through being a folk builder have emulated on how that process is done. As we grow and evolve, there's so many different things that are done in the AFA that are requiring the help of a folk builder. A folk builder is the entry-level volunteer position with our church. And so it means all of the things you might normally think of, like scheduling events, reaching out to members, reaching out to non-members, facilitating our members' participation in the AFA. But it's also building bonds between areas, between other folk builders, so that we can more comprehensively serve our folk. It involves database work. It involves fundraising. It involves building relationships with the other members of AFA leadership. It involves building relationships with the members in a particular area. There's a lot that goes into it, and many of our folk builders put in tireless, amazing work for us. And I say we don't give them the credit they deserve. We try, but there's some things that you put in that you just don't always get that thanks for. And I hope that they see that thanks in all of the people that are joining. But our folk builders are great, and they do a really great job. I was a folk builder for Alaska for a time before I eventually was, what we had at the time was a folk builder coordinator. And so I came up through doing that. I understand how some of that goes. And we've all looked to Sheila as an inspiration on how to do that folk building and do it right. Alistair. Steve has a new website coming out soon. Maybe plug that. Does anybody have the address to Steve's website? we'll try to throw that up in the side over there. Yeah, please go check out Steve's website when it comes out, and give that your attention, give that your likes, give that your support. Nick asks, is there an AFA chat room like on Discord or IRC? I think that there is some informal ones on Discord by AFA members. I know a lot of us are not on Discord, and I'm not really sure what IRC is. Brandy, do you know anything about that?
I don't think we don't have any official chat rooms or anything like that. We just have our MeWe groups, so that if you really want to know what's going on with the folk in your area with the AFA, MeWe is where you need to be. That is where we post up our event information. That's where we've got we have got so many groups. We've got outdoors groups, we've got women's groups, we've got men's groups, veterans groups, parenting groups. We've got everything you could possibly need for your spiritual and mundane life in the AFA, and there's probably a group for it on MeWe. You do have to be an AFA member to be part of that, so that is just another reason to join if you haven't already and start connecting with people.
I'm looking over at the chat. I assume those are redirects. StephenMcNallen.com is where you want to go to Steve's website. Yeah, Brandy's right on. If you want to get involved in interacting and chatting with with AFA folks, you got to join up, and then you can chat with us through our MeWe groups. And certainly the functionality we have here is good for that. Brandy, there's a special question for you from Credence Redcalf. He has a question about victory and how to conquer it.
You're probably expecting me to say something with an axe and blood and without fear, but it's going to be a little bit more complicated than that. A lot of people will say with courage and without fear. Fear is not a bad thing as long as you know what to do with it and how to control it and how to redirect it. Now, as far as victory, there's always going to be something standing in your way. Think of it as a brick wall. Take each one of those bricks down and use it to build something else on the side until your path is clear. Whatever those obstacles are, take them one at a time, tear it down, build something useful out of it. That is the surefire way to victory. That is the surefire way to clear your path. Tear down that wall, but remember to use the materials of that wall to build something else. Don't just discard them. They're just going to slow you down. Build something on each side of you.
I think that's really sound advice. I know it was a Brandy question, but I think that it's really important. It's obviously important to me. It's why the name of this broadcast is Victory Never Sleeps. I think an important thing to victory is it's an action and it's a continuous doing. I don't think you achieve victory and then can rest on it because it slips away. It's elusive. So if you want to be victorious, you've got to always stay on the grind doing that. Always stay in that conquering mindset of achieving, of doing, of being victorious. And that persistence, that's what's going to get it done. Grimnessman asks, what about runic practices or guilds in the AFA? So a couple things and thoughts on that. I know a lot of people look for that and would like to see some of that. There is that goes on. It doesn't go on in the most public, in front of everybody's face way. And a large reason is because we don't want to cheapen it by doing so. I found that when people talk too loosely about metaphysical things, they're very often cheapened, and they take something that's very sparing and very profound and turn it into something very casual and very mundane. And so one of the reasons that doesn't get talked about as much is it's something that people keep personally. It's something that our Gothar talk about in private. It's something that interested members that have a proclivity or a something towards that are talked to on the side. A lot of people have very esoteric practices with their Asatru, but that's not so much the focus of what we do at major AFA events or what we like to talk about. That's more for those people who have that special aptitude, those people who are initiated into those mysteries, those people that ought to be having those very, very high level conversations about those things. We never want to cheapen things. And I think sometimes the caution is due to an abundance of piety there. Mace, does the AFA ever do hunting parties or bushcraft camping? Yes, I can't think of any time the AFA's had like a big hunt. We've talked about it a lot. We've talked about getting together for like a men's weekend and doing a hunt. It's been talked about several times. It hasn't happened. But I know that a number of us have gone on hunts with other AFA members. I know it's something that folks do. I didn't get to do it together with another Asatru, but that was one of my first, most powerful early on bloats that I did or was a part of. Was I did an Uller bloat back when I lived in Alaska during moose season. And my friend and I, we both did this, and we were both going out on our first big moose hunts. And those hunts were very successful. I'll tell you the story sometime, but I had a very interesting encounter with the moose that I ended up eating on for the next year or so. So yeah, hunting absolutely is something that AFA members do together, and something that I'd like to see more of in the future. Okay. So, all right, me and Brandy will both answer this one. Human Manipulation asks, he's not asking for fashion tips, mind you, but curiously, where do you each as men or women get your inspiration for how you present yourselves at functions and in general? Okay, so my situation, if you go look at really old AFA pictures or a video for me at my first AFA events, I'm from Alaska. It's hot. And so I would show up in jean shorts and a sleeveless shirt all the time. And that's kind of what I would do. I did that for the first probably 2 years I was involved in the AFA. And then I met a gentleman at Midsummer, Brad Taylor Hicks. And he was wearing a suit full with the jacket and everything, and a shirt and a tie. And he was the only guy doing it at the time. And, we were wondering why or whatever. And he said that, if you would dress up to go over to your grandmother's house, why wouldn't you dress up to stand before our gods? If you would dress up for a wedding or a funeral or an important event, what would make you think that standing before our gods is less important than that? And it really got me going from there. And ever since then, I've tried to dress nice. I've tried to wear a tie and a button-up shirt. Sometimes it's too hot for me to wear the full jacket, but I like to wear a vest. I think it's putting my best foot forward for the gods. I think it's looking my best to go do something that is a very significant and important occasion. And I think whenever we go and worship our gods, it's a very special occasion. Something else I've also found, though, is that when others do that, when you dress for that purpose, you conduct yourself in an entirely different way. You hold your head up higher. You have pride. You have more dignity in how you present yourself and what you do. Watching that different mindset come upon people when they put on their nice clothes is really a special thing. So that's been my inspiration, and to keep it going, not just dressing well, but trying to be in shape, trying to look good in general. As a Gothi, I represent us all before the gods, and I represent the gods before the rest of my folk. And certainly as the leader of the Asatru Folk Assembly, it's literally my job to be the best I can be and to be that example, and to look good and act good and be the best I can be for the rest of everyone else and for myself. So that's what I'm thinking in it. Brandy, what's your inspiration for how you choose to dress for this stuff?
Well, you kind of stole my my answer, Alsherjargothi, because I was going to say I'm not I'm not playing dress up and make believe that I'm a Viking princess. I am a Githia of the Asatru Folk Assembly. I represent my gods. I represent my folk. I represent my ancestors. I represent my children. I represent my husband and my mother. And that's a big deal. I represent my mother too. And my mother is very, very unimpressed with a lot of modern fashion. So I always keep that in mind. Would my gods approve of what I'm wearing? Would my grandmother approve of what I'm wearing? Are my children embarrassed or happy to be seen with me? Am I being respectful of my husband? Am I being respectful of my folk and my gods? I always want to look my best, be my best, present myself in the best way that I can, because I am representing you as the folk. I am representing my family. I'm representing all of our ancestors and the gods, and it's reciprocal, them to you and you to them. So I have to try really hard to always remember on how you speak, how you dress, how you act, and how you are, not just when you're at the Hof, but every day. Every day. You can look as outstanding as you want in a three-piece suit and tie in a picture at the Hof, but if you look like a jerk on the street and act like one, you just erased everything that you did at the Hof. So it's not just when we are at an event or at a moot. It's every day. I am Asatru every day. I am the AFA every day. I am a Githia of the Aesir every day.
All right, we got a question from Alistair. He's asked it of me before, but specifically for you, Brandy. Do you have any tips or suggestions for single Asatruar looking to meet someone and start a family?
Yes, join the AFA and find another single Asatruar and start a family. I'm not being facetious. I'm being serious. We all know somebody, or some of us are in relationships where you may not be the same religion as your spouse, and that sometimes can be hard. So if you have an opportunity to really set that standard now, do it. Absolutely do it. There are single folk all over in the AFA. We've got lots of women and lots of men, and we've got lots of wives and husbands and babies, but we also got a lot of young single folk that are looking for like-minded people with the intention of honoring their gods, finding a spouse for life, and starting a family. Where else are you going to find somebody with the exact same values as you, rather than your church? What better place to find your future spouse?
I want to throw this out there. Don't let distance be a problem. One of the things that's daunting for AFA members is they look around and, we've got a ton of members, but we don't always have somebody who is single, that's your cup of tea, that's in your area. Don't be afraid. We've got AFA members across the country and around the world. Don't be afraid to go out on a limb and deal with the distance situation. When I met my wife, I lived in Alaska and she lived in Florida. We met at an AFA event in Pennsylvania, and I'm in trouble. I got a math again. Okay, so we've been married 5 years now, and we have a beautiful, beautiful baby girl, and we have a family. And that all started from looking within the AFA, literally the furthest you could possibly be in this country, and making that work. So don't let distance hold you back. And I've got a note over here on where people can go to donate during this podcast. Well, we have donation links at www.runestone.org to each of our Hofs and special stuff we've got going on. But also, if you folks go over and follow the link to Entropy, Matt Flavel on Entropy, you can donate during the broadcast. It's kind of a cool function over there, and it's a neat way if people want to throw us a few bucks here and there. We would certainly appreciate them. But yeah, so that's a thing. I think my daughter was gonna come visit and then decided not to. She popped her head in the door and then ran back out. So I don't know if we're gonna get a OBS visit today, but that's okay. We've been on for about an hour and a half now. Brandy, is there any stuff you want to make sure that we covered tonight?
I think we've covered everything. Oh, are we gonna get an Aubrey? We do. Everybody, Princess Aubrey.
This is the result of going out of your way to find somebody within the AFA. You make things like this happen. All right, guys, you guys are awesome. Does anybody else have any last minute stuff they want to make sure we cover this evening? We'll give it just a second here in case they do. She's got the wiggles, so I think that's all the obs we're going to get this evening. At least you guys. I'm probably going to get some more of that as it approaches bedtime. All right, questions going once, questions going twice. Cool. We will talk to you guys, or I will talk to you guys next week. Still figuring out who my guest is going to be. Brandy, thank you so much for being on here tonight. I know everybody's enjoyed having you. I've certainly always enjoyed talking to you, so it's really nice to have you on. I hope you guys like this. Give us some feedback if this is something you enjoy. If it's something you enjoy, I'd like to do these once a week. And like I said, we're going to try to put these up as podcasts. So, folks that don't want to listen to them, on YouTube or whatever, can go ahead and listen to those while they're at the gym, while they're driving, whatever they need. I appreciate everybody's helped out. Nick, thank you so much. And thank you to everybody who's asked questions tonight. They are certainly much appreciated. Until next time, hail the gods, hail the folk, hail the AFA, and remember, victory never sleeps.